Hello, students. Welcome back to your history class. Last class, we did the very long answer question for the chapter Displacing Indigenous People. Today, we are going to do the map work. I had asked you all to arrange for two maps, a map of the USA and a map of Australia. Both of them were outline political maps. I hope you all have been able to arrange it. If not, if you have an atlas, open it and mark the places in those so that you all can practice it later on. First is the map of USA. In the map of USA, you have to mark Louisiana, Florida, Texas, Oregon, California, Utah, New Mexico, Maine, and New York. Now, you also have to write a little bit about them in your examinations. So Louisiana, it was purchased from France in 1803. Florida was purchased from Spain in 1819. Texas was annexed in 1845. Oregon assigned to USA by a treaty with Great Britain in 1846. Utah, California, and New Mexico, all these three were ceded by Mexico in 1848. And Mexico was purchased in 1853. Maine, New York, California, Florida, and Texas, these you have to locate. So all these you have to know about these places. Now let's mark. Louisiana is over here. Remember, these are states. So this entire territory is Louisiana. This is Texas over here. We have California, Oregon, New York, Utah, New Mexico, Florida, Maine. Okay, all these you have to be able to locate. All right, moving on to the Australia's map. This is the Australia's map. In this map, you have to locate important cities and towns like Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, and Darwin. The important oceans around Australia, which is the Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and the Southern Ocean. Adjoining areas should have Tasmania and New Zealand both. Okay, so let's start with marking the important cities. Perth, Darwin, Adelaide. Melbourne, Canberra, This is Tasmania. This place is Tasmania. New Zealand is over here. Brisbane is over here. All right. So this is the Australian map. Next year, this is also a map of Australia. You can see Canberra, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, Darwin, all out here also, but that was a more zoomed and focused map. So I showed you those. Taken this map just to show you New Zealand right here and Tasmania, which are adjoining countries to Australia. Now, here we have the Indian Ocean, here we have the Pacific Ocean, and below down south, we will still have the Southern Ocean. All right. So with this, children, we have completed the map work of this chapter. Next class, we are going to start with the question and answers of paths to modernization. Actually, I can start today itself. Yeah, let's do it today. Let's begin with question and answers of the next chapter, paths to modernization. Okay. So this is the last chapter, paths to modernization. In this chapter, we focused on the East Asia from late 19th to 20th century. We saw the militarization and the economic growth of Japan. We saw China and the communist alternative, and we even discussed the historians' debate on the meaning of modernization. So now we all are aware of the transformation in the modern world, and that it takes many different forms. And you all can show how the notions like modernization actually need to be critically analyzed. So let's begin. Mention two methods that were used for colonial domination by the imperialist countries. So military intervention or direct wars and diplomatic moves. These are the two methods that were used for colonial domination by the imperialist countries. The imperialist countries, they carved their colonies by resorting to wars and conquests. They used to make the best use of the weaknesses and fight the local chiefs, and they would easily defeat them on the war front and then establish a hold on the new areas. This is exactly what the British did in India and what French did in Indochina. Diplomatic moves is the second thing. So sometimes the colonies were also established without fighting, but they used to sign a friendly, peaceful treaty. Okay. And this was the subsidiary system, where the local chief used to get some territories in lieu thereof contracting an agreement with other imperialist powers, and then they would divide the entire area among themselves, just like they used to do it in Africa. Okay, so these are the two methods: military intervention or direct wars and diplomatic moves. Question 2. What are the two methods that are employed by the foreign powers to establish their imperialistic control over China? So the first is sphere of influence and the second is extraterritorial rights. Now, sphere of influence basically is the extent of domination of one country over whole or some parts of another country out of its own personal interest. Such spheres of influence can be political, but it can also be economical. And they serve the country under whose sphere of influence they fall. For example, the whole of China has been divided in the 19th century into different spheres of influence by different imperialistic powers. Some fell under Germany, some under England, some France, and some Russia, etc. Extraterritorial rights. This refers to the power or right of a powerful imperial country to impose her own laws upon the weaker countries. So in 1839, when the Chinese opened their port cities to the British traders, British imposed the conditions that the British subjects in those cities would be only subjected to British laws, and Chinese courts would have no jurisdiction over these people. They could be tried only by the British officers or magistrates. So these kind of methods they used to take their imperialistic control over China. Explain the term cutting of the Chinese melon. The term cutting of the Chinese melon means dividing China into different spheres of influence by advancing loan to China. The four European powers, France, Russia, Britain, and Germany, divided China into their respective spheres of influence. Britain established her influence over Yangtze Valley and got Weihai in addition to Hong Kong. France got the control of Guangzhou Bay and the extensive rights in 3 southern provinces of China. Germany received Qianzhou Bay and exclusive rights in the Shantung and Huanghe Valley. And Russia got Liaodong Peninsula and the exclusive rights to build roads in Manchuria. So this is how they cut China, and this is how, and the term they use is called cutting of the Chinese melon. Next is mention 2 effects of imperialism on China. Number 1 was division of China into different spheres of influence, and number 2 was the unnecessary opium wars. Because of the imperialism, the whole of China was divided into different spheres by various imperialist powers. And number 2, to push the sale of opium and to get huge profits, the Europeans forced opium on the Chinese. And when the Chinese resisted, they ensured a war between the two sides, and these were called the Opium Wars. Okay, these were unnecessary wars, and China was badly defeated, and they had to pay heavy war damages and open 5 ports for the European traders. What were the harmful effects of the opium trade on China? British used to force opium on Chinese people and ensured the wars between the two, and these were the Opium Wars. Such wars had a very, very bad effect on China. It caused much harm to it. They used to force opium, and it had a lot of physical and moral damage to the Chinese. British forced the Chinese to use opium, and although Chinese resisted, there were wars, and these were opium wars. China was badly defeated, and they had to pay huge damages and open 5 ports to the British traders. Hong Kong was handed over to Britain, and other countries like France, Germany, Japan, America also began to exploit this situation and scramble China for power. Next question. Why was China unable to check the imperialist exploitation? China was unable to check the imperialist exploitation due to many reasons. Some of them are, just like other Asian and African countries, China was very weak in the military and backward. Number 2, her sea power was also very weak, and so she fell an easy prey to different imperialist countries like France, British, Russia, China, Japan. as they were far advanced on the naval side. Different imperialist countries had also developed sophisticated weapons, and China was no match to them. She was still using age old weapons which had become obsolete and outdated. Japan defeated China in 1894, and her weakness was then exposed to the whole world, and this tore China to pieces in no time. To pay huge amounts of war indemnity to Japan, China was forced to borrow money from different imperialistic nations, and so she fell prey to the borrowers who tore her to pieces like wild vultures. So it was a very sad thing. What two causes helped Japan to become an imperialist power? Number one, it was a result of the Meiji Restoration. Japan made great progress in the industrial field, and soon she became one of the most advanced industrial powers of the world. Number two, Japan was deficit in raw materials to feed her industries, but she could easily get those raw materials from China, and so she forced a war on China and conquered many of the territories and forced her to supply raw material to her for her industries. One was Meiji Restoration, and the other was it did not have its own raw materials. So they made a war with China, won it, and took away some territories, and then forced those territories to provide raw materials to their industries. Question 8. Describe briefly the Sino-Japanese War. The Japanese learned everything possible from the Western countries. The love of the emperor and country was used to promote a spirit of imperialism among the masses. Japan became a warlike nation eager to conquer and rule the world. The Japanese leaders also emphasized that Japan must expand to the main continent of Asia and into South Pacific in order to acquire necessary raw material for her industry. With this view, Japan invaded China, and as a result of Sino-Japanese War, she conquered many parts of China. Russo-Japanese War. So in 19th century, people of Asia and Africa believed in superiority of the European powers, and they thought it was very difficult to defeat them. Japan inflicted a crushing defeat on Russia in 1905-1904. This defeat destroyed the myth of the superiority of the European powers. So at the same time, the Japanese carried on an anti-European propaganda and raised the slogans, Asia for Asians. This raised the morale of the people and inspired them to throw off the foreign yoke. So these were 9 question and answers that we've completed today. I hope you all are making notes. All this will be included in your final examination. Start studying. Complete your project. Guidelines must have reached you by now. Project is very important. It carries 20 marks, and I am looking forward to really beautiful projects made by you all. With this, I end today's class. Stay home, stay safe, take care, keep learning. Thank you.